Rome in 100 BCE seemed like the ruler of the Mediterranean, but inside the city it stayed tense and divided. Old families competed for office, crowds pushed for change, and rival leaders treated politics like a fight for survival. Into that uncertainty, Julius Caesar was born in the Julian clan. It sounded impressive, yet a famous name alone did not protect anyone when Rome's laws bent under pressure. The Julian family carried ancient prestige, but it did not sit at the top of Roman power. In Caesar's lifetime, influence came from allies, marriages, and the ability to choose a side at the right moment. Every election stirred enemies. Every public speech created debts. Caesar grew up watching men rise fast and fall faster, not because they lacked talent, but because they misread who truly controlled the city. So Caesar learned early that Rome rewarded more than birth. It rewarded nerve, connections, and careful positioning. His world offered constant lessons. A relative's career could open doors. A patron's favor could vanish overnight, and one wrong association could stain a household for years. In that climate, even a young noble had to think like a politician. Survival depended on maneuvering, not tradition. Sulla seized control of Rome by force and then used law like a weapon. He published lists of enemies, and anyone named could be hunted down, killed and stripped of property. Families collapsed overnight. Friends became liabilities. In that climate, every connection mattered, and every connection could also condemn you. Caesar, still young, stood too close to the losing side of Roman politics. Sulla demanded that Caesar cut his ties to the men Sulla hated most. Caesar refused. It sounded like stubborn pride, but it was more dangerous than that. It was loyalty, identity, and future ambition all tied together. Sulla's supporters pushed to punish him, and the threat became immediate. Caesar lost protection, lost safety, and suddenly faced the same machinery of elimination that had swallowed older, stronger men. Caesar fled Rome and lived as an exile, moving from place to place to avoid arrest and death. He gave up the normal path of a young aristocrat and learned what power looked like when it did not bother to hide behind tradition. Only later did a pardon arrive, and even that came with a warning. Caesar returned, marked by the experience. He had collided with Rome's cruelty and survived. When the pressure eased, Caesar stepped back into Rome's public life with nothing guaranteed. He needed proof he belonged among leaders, not just survivors. So he went where reputation could be earned fast: military service. Away from the city's grudges, he took risky assignments and performed with visible nerve. It bought him something precious. People started talking about him again, and this time the story sounded like momentum. Back in Rome, he turned that momentum into a weapon. He pushed into the courts, a place where ambition could wear the mask of justice. Caesar attacked powerful men tied to corruption and abuse, not because it was safe, but because it was loud. Every case forced citizens to choose a side and forced the Senate to notice him. He did not always win, but he kept appearing, and the city learned his name. He also learned that popularity needed feeding. Caesar spent money he barely had on public generosity, backing events and favors that made ordinary Romans feel remembered. It created a simple trade. He gave them attention, and they gave him support. The cost was brutal. Debts piled up, and dependents followed close behind. Still, the result was clear. The hunted young aristocrat became a contender, ready to gamble bigger for power. Caesar aimed for an office that sounded religious, but worked like raw political power. The high priesthood, the Pontifex Maximus. It controlled public rituals and the calendar, and it carried lifelong prestige. He ran against older, richer men who seemed untouchable. Yet he campaigned like everything depended on it, because it did. When he won, he did not just gain honor. He gained a platform no rival could ignore. The victory came at a price. Caesar financed his rise with borrowed money, and the sums were enormous. Creditors expected results, not gratitude, and every promise he made tightened the pressure. Prestige helped him attract allies, but it also raised expectations, and expectations demanded action. Soon he reached for the next step, the praetorship, a senior magistracy that brought legal authority and control over key decisions in the city. As praetor, Caesar held real leverage. He influenced courts, public order, and the everyday machinery of government, which meant favors could be granted and enemies could be squeezed. Each move widened his reach, but it also narrowed his room to slow down. A cautious politician could have used these offices to settle in. Caesar did the opposite. With debts hanging over him and ambition driving him, he committed to bigger risks and bolder plays. By 60 BCE, Caesar needed more than talent and bold promises. Rome's politics ran on alliances, favors, and blocks. Two men already towered over the system, each frustrated in a different way. Pompey held fame and soldiers, but the Senate resisted his plans. Crassus held enormous wealth, but wanted political results. Caesar saw the opening. If their strengths combined, the old rules stopped mattering. The deal that formed was not a legal office, not a public committee, and not approved by the Senate. It was private, practical, and ruthless. Later, it was called the First Triumvirate. Each man got something. Pompey received support for settling his veterans and confirming his eastern arrangements. Crassus gained help for financial allies. Caesar gained the most immediate prize, backing powerful enough to win the consulship. Once the three moved together, Rome's institutions bent under their weight. Elections, laws, and decisions that once required broad agreement now faced a single coordinated bloc. Senators who tried to resist found themselves outspent, outmaneuvered, or simply outvoted. The alliance did not end the republic on paper, but it changed how power worked in practice. It cleared Caesar's path, and it made his rivals look suddenly helpless. After his consulship ended, Caesar did not return to private life. He received a major provincial command. Gaul, a vast and unsettled region north of Italy. Officially, it looked like a routine posting. In reality, it solved everything he needed solved. It gave him legal authority, time away from enemies in Rome, and most important, an army. He also gained the right to wage war. That permission changed his future. In 58 BCE, he used threats on Rome's frontier to justify action, then pushed far beyond what anyone expected. Campaign by campaign, he defeated rival tribes, took hostages, demanded tribute, and planted Roman influence deeper into Gaul. Each victory brought plunder and new taxes, and that money mattered. It paid off debts, rewarded supporters, and kept his soldiers supplied. Success fed success, and the assignment turned into a long war. Year after year, his legions followed him through harsh marches and brutal battles, and they learned that their rewards depended on him personally. He promoted men for courage, shared spoils, and made his army feel like his cause was their cause. The Senate remained far away, and Rome's laws felt distant. By 50 BCE, Caesar returned in reputation as a conqueror, in wealth as a power broker, and in loyalty as the commander of hardened troops. By the end of the Gallic Wars, Caesar held something the Senate feared more than wealth: soldiers who followed him personally. In Rome, powerful senators treated that loyalty like a threat to the republic itself. They pushed for him to give up command and return as a private citizen, exposed to prosecution. At the same time, Pompey drifted away from Caesar and toward the Senate's side. The alliance that once balanced Rome's politics started to break. The standoff hardened into a simple choice, and both sides raised the stakes. Caesar wanted to keep legal protection and political status while he returned. His opponents wanted him weakened first, then judged. Pompey, once Caesar's partner, now stood as the Republic's main military figure in Italy, ready to enforce the Senate's orders. Compromise collapsed. Each delay made Caesar's position worse, and each demand made trust impossible. Rome moved toward war without admitting it. In 49 BCE, Caesar reached the small river that marked the edge of his legal authority, the Rubicon. Crossing it with troops meant rebellion because no general was supposed to bring an army into Italy. Turning back meant surrendering everything he had built and likely his freedom. He crossed. That single march transformed a political fight into civil war. Rome's disputes no longer played out in speeches and votes, but in legions moving against Romans. Caesar's march into civil war did not end with the capture of Italy. Pompey still held experienced forces and the backing of many senators, and he moved the struggle east. Caesar followed, and the war turned into a race to break the enemy's main army. In Greece, at Pharsalus, Caesar won a decisive victory. Pompey fled, but his cause did not recover. With Pompey gone, resistance continued in scattered pockets, and Caesar had to crush it one campaign at a time. Each win sent a message. The old balance of the Republic no longer worked. Caesar returned as the dominant figure in Roman politics, not just a victorious general. He took control of elections, appointments, and the calendar of public life. Power gathered around him because no rival remained strong enough. Then came the reforms and the rewards. Caesar pushed measures that tightened administration, settled veterans, and tried to stabilize Rome's finances and provincial rule. But the political meaning mattered more than the details. He accepted titles, special privileges, and repeated high office on a scale no Roman had held in living memory. Step by step, the Republic's institutions still existed, yet they started to orbit one man's authority. By 44 BCE, Caesar's power looked permanent. He held offices, controlled appointments, and accepted honors that made him seem untouchable. To many senators, it felt like the Republic still existed only on paper. They did not all hate Caesar. Some had benefited from his victories, but they feared one outcome above all, a king returning to Rome under a different title. A group formed inside the Senate itself, made up of men who claimed they acted to save Rome's old order. They planned quickly, relying on access, surprise, and numbers. On the Ides of March, they struck in a public political setting, not a battlefield. Caesar fell under a storm of blades. The act was meant to end a crisis. It started a new one. The assassins expected the state to reset, as if removing one man automatically restored the rules. Instead, Rome recoiled. Caesar's supporters demanded vengeance. Ordinary citizens reacted with anger and confusion, and the Senate hesitated, unsure who truly held power now. The conspirators had killed the dictator, but they had not built a replacement. Authority fractured at once, and violence rushed into the gap. Long after his blood spilled on the Senate floor, Caesar's name still carried a strange double meaning. It meant brilliance and ambition, but it also meant a warning. His rise showed how one person could bend a republic without openly destroying it. His murder proved something even sharper. Removing the man did not remove the problem. It exposed how fragile Rome's system already was. The conspirators had expected the Republic to snap back into place as if a single death restored old rules. Instead, the vacuum pulled Rome into more violence and more rivalry. Power moved to armies and personal loyalties, not debates and votes. In the struggle that followed, Caesar's position became a blueprint. Rome drifted toward a new kind of leader, one who ruled for life in everything but title. That shift ended with emperors, not elected magistrates, and the republic became a memory used for speeches, not a reality that governed. Caesar's death, meant to save freedom, accelerated the opposite outcome. Even language remembered it. His family name became a symbol of supreme authority, passed on as a political claim. And that legacy began with a young noble who once looked exposed, uncertain, and easy to break.